My name is Lisa Chase, and I'm a professor at University of Vermont Extension and the director of the Vermont Tourism Research Center. And today we are discussing the diversity and impact of agritourism in Southern Africa. This virtual gathering is the 7th in a series leading up to the International Workshop on Agritourism, which we are planning to take place in Vermont in person. We're hoping we can all travel by then. In August of 2022. We've postponed it yet again, so we're looking at 2022 to finally have the conference. Until then, we are planning to keep these virtual connections going. We'll continue with these monthly gatherings, and we're also looking into other creative ways to strengthen this agritourism network. And I want to emphasize that we are, because we have a whole nother year to fill, since we've postponed the in-person conference once again, we are definitely open to new ideas for connecting and new topics and speakers. So feel free to get in touch with me at any time if you have suggestions and ideas. A major sponsor for this conference and for these virtual gatherings is Yonder, which is a new booking site that promotes farm stays and other nature-rich guest experiences. Founded and advised by farmers, Yonder highlights stewards that have a connection to their local community, practice environmental responsibility, and exhibit hospitality that's reflective of this commitment. Through the Yonder site and app, guests can discover and book overnight stays and activities at farms in the US and now also in Europe. Yonder is expanding around the world, and they have been and will continue to be an important partner for the International Agritourism Network that was launched at the first World Congress on Agritourism, which took place in Bolzano, Italy in 2018 and was organized by URAC Research. Until we can meet again in person at the conference in Vermont in August of 2022, we're going to continue building this network through these virtual gatherings. And in just a moment, we're going to dive into today's discussion on agritourism in Southern Africa. But first, I am going to launch a poll to see who is here with us. So right now on your screen, you should see a box that says, describe yourself, check all that apply. Please take a moment to click as many boxes as represent the hats that you wear. And I know that many of us wear many hats here. We'll share these results in a moment. And one of the things that's a little challenging about these webinars is it would be so much nicer if we were all sitting in a room together and could look out and see all the faces and see everyone who's here with us. And I've had the privilege of looking through the registration list and seeing what an amazing group of people from all over the world with all different types of farms and ranches and organizations and government agencies have signed up. But you can't see that, unfortunately, here. So what I want to do is invite you to type into the chat. And when you type into so at the bottom of your screen, you should see a box for Q&A. Put your questions there at any time. You also should see a box for chat. And right now, if you are willing to introduce yourself, feel free to go there, and you can select just panelists or panelists and attendees. If you're willing to share who you are with the whole group out here, please take a moment to type into chat, select panelists and attendees, and let us know who you are, where you're from, and what you're hoping to get out of this webinar. I'm going to end the polling now and share the results. And it's always so interesting to see how the mix changes for different topics. So for this topic, we've got about a third researchers, followed by educators at 27% and about 11% farmers, ranchers, whole lot of business owners, as well as nonprofits, government agencies, and other folks as well. Let's see, I am gonna stop sharing my screen now, because what I'd like to do is, now that we've learned a little bit about you, want to turn it over to our moderator, Kanyi Gabiro. Kanyi believes that agritourism is a vehicle for achieving sustainable rural economic and social development. Her focus at Agritourism Africa, where she works, is on strategic projects that have potential to grow and sustain the rural economy in Southern Africa. This involves working with international partners to provide advice and guidance to members of Agritourism Africa, assisting members with marketing and promotions, and representing agritourism at meetings and conferences with governmental tourism and agricultural institutions. Kanyi has a bachelor's in science in chemistry and is completing her master's in global energy and climate policy. And she's also actively involved in academic research on climate change resilience. And then in her spare time, she works for Agritourism Africa and does all this amazing work there. Kanyi, thank you so much for joining us, and I'm going to turn it over to you now.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you for the wonderful introduction. So I'll start off by kind of describing, well, let's start off by setting the mood and just kind of, we've got a variety of an audience, as I've seen from the introductions. And it's really exciting to be moderating what agritourism means in the context of Southern Africa. Farms are a mysterious place. Even for people who grow up in farms, visiting another farm is still full of surprises. So, and today will be like visiting another farm. It'll be like visiting Manti's farm and Khwa, where Michael is the MD of the establishment. And it will be like having a coffee with them and having a discussion on what it really is like to have people on your farm while you farm, and while you don't just farm, but you have a very purposeful goal in the operations of the farm. But I'll start with just briefly describing the context of the agriculture industry, of farms, of rural economy in Southern Africa, particularly in South Africa. Rural to urban migration in South Africa is leaving rural towns with increasingly declining economies, with fewer opportunities for income, and even fewer opportunities for employment. The economy is being limited to agriculture, and even that is, as it's decreasing with the threats of climate change, of less predictable seasons, leading to food insecurity, and more. And today we'll touch less on impacts of food insecurity, on climate change, but more on the social aspect, on more of cultural heritage, of social issues that arise when in the increased rural to urban migration. One of those is the loss of cultural heritage and environmental preservation. However, not to dwell too much on the problem, our panelists have present solutions actually through agritourism methods of how they have preserved the environment and preserved cultural heritage. Naledi farm, which is Manti is the owner of the farm, is an example of one that preserves the Sutu culture and really is set in an urban environment and almost provides almost an oasis for people to connect with the Sotho cultural heritage on the farm. There'll be a tour of even the indigenous trees that you'll find there, the links and the education explored in the indigenous medicine linked to some of the trees and the plants. And equally with Michael will really delve into how Khwa preserves the sun culture and continues educating visitors on a culture and which is being threatened by the effects of climate change and of course rural to urban migration. So without taking up more time, I feel the panelists have been lightly introduced. I'll allow them to be able to get I'll allow the audience to have more time to listen to how Manti, how Michael have in their farms preserved indigenous methods and cultural heritage in their own regional context. Manti, from here, I'll let you start off.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you everybody for this platform. And thank you for everybody who's participating today. So I'm just going to share with you our journey and our story, which is Naledi Farm. So we are in South Africa, in Pretoria. So we are sort of an urban farm. But a bit of, maybe just a bit of background about Naledi Farm and where it all started. So Naledi Farm is born out of a children's book that I wrote in 2010. The book is written in Sesotho. It's one of our local languages here in South Africa. It's written in Sesotho and it's centered around the vegetable garden. Teaching principles of self-sufficiency, encouraging, it's a children's book, right? So we encourage children to be creative. We encourage children to work with their hands and to be self-reliant. So really that is where the dream began. In 2010. And after the publication of this book, now the dream grew bigger. We now wanted to create a physical space where people could walk into this vegetable garden. You know, we wanted to give the book a three-dimensional form to really give effect physically so to the principles that you know in this children's book of ours. So we went around searching for land and we found this beautiful 3 hectares agricultural place set beautifully in a conservation area. You know, in that way it puts us, you know, in tune with local communities, and we work together to protect and, you know, to protect the environment. And so our aim really with this farm was to provide a space for healing and teaching. We wanted to provide guests who come from the city with that opportunity to connect with the land. You know, at Naledi Farm, we always say, you know, the land is our teacher, the land is our mother, the land is our hospital, the land is everything to us. We wanted to give those people that want to come and just get a home away from home, to get away from the buzz of the city, to walk barefoot and to touch the ground. So really we established the farm with agritourism in mind, with the vegetable garden as its center. And I say the vegetable garden as its center because we have seen firsthand. I come from a family who always grew their food. Man, I don't remember a day where we had to buy anything. I mean, my father worked with his hands, and I saw how he would he would, from seed, we would just have abundance of food. So we have seen firsthand the abundance that comes from, a vegetable garden. It doesn't have to be big. And we have seen firsthand the many life lessons that one gets from a vegetable garden. And that is why this farm of ours is centered around vegetable garden. We're not into commercial farming. We have a small patch that we tend, and we share the food with neighbors and the community. So we have a couple of programs that we run on the farm. And I mean, like everybody, we've been hit by the pandemic, and sadly, we have not been able to run most of the programs that we have. It's only now that I think things are sort of easing up and we are starting to open our doors again. So one program that really excites me is our kids program. And these programs are designed to encourage children, like I said, to be creative, to get off their laptops and gadgets and TV, to use their hands and to be self-reliant. I mean, if you are able to grow your own food, you will not know hunger. So we have a couple of programs that we run for them. We have gardening, vegetable gardening classes. We have school excursions where children can come during the course of the week and be a subsistence farmer for a day. And we also have kids holiday camps where they spend, an entire weekend with us, and parents can get that much needed break. And it is always, beautiful to see their faces when they're able to link what they learn in school with practical hands-on examples on the farm. I mean, things like photosynthesis, they get that aha moment, like pollination and habitats. We get them to measure perimeter and area, and they're able to link what they learn in school with practical examples. It's always beautiful. We also teach them how to bake bread, and the pride in their eyes when they go home and they're able to bake bread for their families, pull out that recipe that we give them, and be able to share this bread that we taught them how to bake with families is just incredible. So those are just some of the things that we do under the kids program. Then we have farm markets, okay? Our farm markets, here we partner with urban farmers, gardeners, creatives, craftspeople, and we all come together once a month to set up stalls and showcase our products. It's a beautiful networking session, and also a way to uplift the economy, in the local economy. So we encourage everybody to come, and it's just a beautiful day out on the farm. Another area, one of our programs that we have is the farm school. So here we run short classes and short hands-on training programs for aspirant gardeners, aspirant landowners, because there are a couple of things that we have learned ourselves, from running a farm, aspirant farmers, and I mean, those the classes that we hold are really from our lived experience here on the farm. And linked closely to that is our vegetable gardening services. So here we go out to people's homes, and we help them set up their own vegetable patches. Another area which really excites me, which I'm very passionate about, is our cooking demos. Okay, so here guests get to pick fresh veggies and herbs from our vegetable garden, and together with a guest chef, cook up a storm, and then later sit down and enjoy the meal. And it's not only about the food that we eat; it's also an educational event, because here we showcase and we bring back onto the table some of those indigenous plants, that grow freely in our area. We have, I mean, in recent days, there's been a lot of talk about Artemisia afra, right? The African wormwood, which grows right here in South Africa. So we are bringing all those beautiful plants. There's Cleomygia ginandra, there's speckworm. We are bringing them back onto the table and really increasing people's interest in the culinary and medicinal use of some of our indigenous programs. So there are quite a lot of programs. I'm just going to share the last one, which is the harvest table. It's a harvest in the sense that once a month, we sit on long tables, we cook food that comes from our garden, but then we also invite a speaker who comes to share food, from their own food for thought, to come and share their life journey, a skill or anything like that. So it's a harvest, in a full sense of the word, in that we would have eaten, but would have also gained something for our minds, and everybody leaves our shores feeling a little fuller. So those are jumps of the programs that we have. It's really been a rewarding journey, incredibly rewarding, with lots and lots of lessons along the way. And we continue to learn. Perhaps maybe just to share some of our experiences on benefits of agritourism. I think top on the list, really, it is that opportunity to create various income streams, okay? So apart from just a whole field of cabbages, which may not make it because there was drought or pests, you are able to create a separate income stream and to generate more income. And linked closer to that is the ability to use resources that you already have. So you don't have to always think building new structures. For instance, we converted one of our bedrooms into the conferencing facility. We thought, it's big. Why do we just want to sleep in it? Let's use it and let it make income for us. And there's also that opportunity to work together as a family and to pass on the baton to the children, and everybody taps into their talents and gifts. And of course, the boost to the local economy. There are a few people that we have here on the farm that help us. There are a few that come sessionally when we have big events. So there is something that they're also able to take back home to their families. And now when we look on some of the low, or can say challenges that we have experienced here on the farm, low financial return, at least in the beginning, which is, I think, where we are. It's not as glamorous as it looks. You don't really make as much money as you would like to, but it's just the nature of the business. And sometimes you have to use money upfront, in order to make the facilities presentable for visitors, or even to ensure that your facility meets certain regulatory requirements. Think about if you have to start a kitchen, or a restaurant. There are certain regulations that you have to follow, and those always come with money, and it's not always easy. And it's a lot of work, I don't want to lie. So if you are not good with your hands and you don't want to work, it's a lot of work. The amount of work that you put in, that we put in when we have one guest, is just the same as when we have 100 people, because the place has to be presentable, it has to be safe, it has to be clean, whether it's one person or whether it's 100 people. So it's a lot of work, and it's very demanding. It demands your full and constant attention. And sometimes, you just find that the business side of your life and your family life, you just don't know which one starts and which one ends. And it can have, some strains in relationship. So those are just some of the challenges. But like I said, it's a rewarding journey, and with lots and lots of lessons. I am fortunate, we're really fortunate that my husband and I have been able to unite around this vision, together, a vision which is bigger than us, a purpose which is bigger than us. And we are inspired every day by the guests and friends who come and visit us and encourage us. Most of them have now become family. And I think, if we put the challenges aside and some of the lows, it is really a success to wake up and do that which makes your heart jump. That on its own is a success. I think that's it. Thank you. Stop. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Manti.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Manti. From a business owner's perspective, Manti and her family started Naledi Farm from the beginning, and I really appreciate how honest you have been about your journey, how fulfilling it has been, how challenging it has been, and the business reality of it, such as the amount of work it takes to prepare for a guest, for a visitor, you know, I would also like to invite our participants and people who are watching the virtual gathering to really think about some questions that you want to ask Manti about perhaps your farm, or if you support farmers in any way, on how you could have a conversation on how they could make the most of diversifying their farm activities. Manti mentioned how education was an avenue, such as the kids program, where they come and they put into practice science, really taking opportunities of trends, such as really making the most of the medicinal and the culinary uses of indigenous plants like speckworm. All of these are fantastic ways to mitigate the risks in farming, which could come with drought, with a lot of climatic change, with economic changes that could threaten, ideally, commercially farming. And so I'd really invite you to ask questions on, for example, how she organized, or what is the best way to organize an event such as a harvest table, where people come and they take part in learning how to cook, learning what the different plants mean, learning what it means to farm, the daily activities, and at the end of it all, in a conference area, have conversations and share a meal together, which is a very core human thing to do. So thank you once again, Manti. And I really look forward to the questions that are going to come your way. Moving along, Michael. Michael is the managing director of Khwa, which is a center which focuses on really sharing San culture, the San people culture. He will get into more of what the San people are and what the center means in terms of preserving the cultural heritage. So without taking up too much time, Michael, please go ahead.
Thank you, Kanyi. Thank you very much. So I represent Khwa. I think it's not easy for everybody to say. It's written with an exclamation mark, the first letter of the word Khwa, and it's one of the clicks in the San languages that almost sounds like a champagne bottle when it gets popped. So that's how you write it. So it's not, sometimes people mistakenly call it Khwa, but it's not an I, it's upside down, it's Khwa. So Khwa is a farm, and it's quite a unique and a special and an interesting farm that has had a very interesting story over the last 20 years. And I'm really here to share this story with you, and to share a story of where it started as a very conventional farm, and it turned itself upside down, and it was shaken and moved around until it is a very different farm now. So before I continue talking, I also would love to just show you a short little video, just a short video, so at least you can get some sort of idea of where we are and what the environment looks like outside from where I'm sitting at the moment. So yeah, if we can play that video.
After many years of planning and community consultation, all San of Southern Africa finally have a place to tell their stories as they wish to tell them. It's Kwatu. Kwatu is the only heritage center dedicated to the San. Your hosts are San from across Southern Africa, sharing their stories, languages, skills, and knowledge. Sensitively renovated Cape Farm buildings house our accommodation, our restaurant, and our shop, sitting within 850 hectares of regenerated fynbos land, rich in wildlife, small and large. Take your time to explore our galleries, spanning First People origin stories, the archaeology of modern humans, through to the troubling times of colonization and the opportunities and challenges of life today. But to really understand San as recent gatherers and hunters, spend time with our San guides in the immersive Way of the San Museum and out in our land, where they share their knowledge and skills of fire making, tracking, hunting, and plant use. A visit to Kwatu combines culture and heritage, adventure and relaxation, tourism and education, giving you a new understanding of the phrase, San Spirit Shared.
Yes, thank you. Hopefully you get some sort of idea of what we do, and maybe I just give you still an interesting story, a sort of a personal perspective of somebody who has come a long way with this organization from the beginning, from the inception time. So I'm able to tell a story of the last 21 years, and it's really the story of how this came about, how we once received a dilapidated old farm and it got turned into a heritage center. And yeah, this is really the story. But you know, we hear the word San, and sometimes we hear the word Bushman. Maybe I just elaborate a little bit about this. This is the San are the first peoples of Southern Africa. They are people that's often academically linked to the ancient people, that's linked to the cradle of humankind, that really are the people that has been around for an extremely long time in Southern Africa. But it's also people that are most marginalized and most overlooked and contested. People that have been most researched by researchers. There has been such a fascination about the San in the last 300 years by the colonists who measured them and weighed them and put them into boxes because of the size of their hands or the size of certain body parts. And this has really shaped people to really have lost their identity over the last 300 years, and has really put them in a very, very challenging position. It's left them landless, unemployed, very, very often overlooked and unschooled and uneducated, and has really left great, great challenges with these people. Today, there are about 120,000 San people living in Southern Africa, in Botswana, in Namibia, and South Africa, even in Angola and in a little bit in Zimbabwe. And these people came together some 25 years ago and formed an organization, really tried to create an umbrella organization that would give them a voice to speak about their stories and about their plight and about really being able to talk about their story internationally. And one of their visions was to create a center that was going to become the one place that represents all San people of Southern Africa. It should be the place where young San people should be able to learn and to be educated and to be trained, but it should, most importantly, it should be a place where San people can really tell their story to the world and restitute their stories and somehow have a place to tell their true and honest story, not just a romantic story that so often in the tourism industry gets told as just people with bows and arrows that are pretty looking on a sunset, on the silhouette of a dune. But it's really people that have had a great struggle and that really have to tell their stories and to have a place to really identify themselves with. And this was the vision. And then something amazing happened 20 years ago. We've met a philanthropist, and this person made an incredible donation to buy a farm and said, this farm should be made available to realize or materialize this dream of having this heritage center for the San. This was a big issue. Where should this be? It should be equally close to so many people that live in such remote areas all across Southern Africa. So eventually it was said, let's find a place common and equally far to everybody. And therefore they chose Cape Town, or the area of Cape Town. And this is where we are today, because Cape Town is somehow a place with resources. This is a place that attracts many, many, many visitors. And it's a place where many, many San people have lived for thousands of years and have been eradicated and pushed away from the traditional lands, from these coastal areas where people hunted and gathered for thousands of years. And in a way, it was trying to make a statement to come back and to have a place and to have a voice. And this is how this story then started. There was this really dilapidated farm that was trying to survive for many decades in a very, very difficult area, an area where you should have never farmed. It's wind-blown areas, it's sandy, it's salty air. It's the most incredible, prestigious fynbos indigenous plants in these areas. And somehow somebody tried to farm there in the last 200 years and erected the most beautiful, beautiful buildings, but it became an economical liability. It was just so difficult to farm. And eventually this is what we then bought. And this was the beginning of something. If you had to look at it, it was just a disaster of something that was just falling apart. Buildings have never been maintained for decades before. It was literally dripping and washing off the walls. The roofs were rusted. It's incredibly salty air. And the land was bare. It was a wheat farming area. It was fenced in with kilometers and kilometers of barbed wire fences. And we really had to start this long journey of trying to make this place pretty and attractive, and to try and invest in this land and try and bring people from all over Southern Africa to all participate in the building up of this. This has been a great challenge to make sure that so many people that are so widely spread over so many, many countries and who even speak so many different languages could somehow develop a common goal and a common sense of ownership and achievement. And in such a way, small groups of people came and worked this land and started restoring these buildings. And slowly over time, we followed a different pace. Nothing happened overnight. Everything had to be fundraised. Everything had to be planned and discussed and met about. And eventually we started to almost create a little stream of thought and energy and a vision. And this little stream became bigger and bigger, and it was infused with more energy of people that really started to get along. And the stream became a little river that followed somehow on the contours of the land. And somehow this slowly developed. We introduced animals. We started to look at the conservation and really trying to say, if we look after the land will look after us. And for a long time, we just said, we should not farm. This is not a farm. But these words never lasted because somehow we came back to farming. This became really a unique and a very different farm. So at some point, we realized that we needed to create income. Everything had to be sustainable. Everything had to see some form of income and some sort of future for creating jobs and creating opportunities for people and trying to create training and education opportunities. So at some point, we just opened our gates and invited people to visit as travelers or as visitors or as guests. And this was the beginning of a new journey, something where we were conservationists or farmers, and we had to turn into hospitality workers. And slowly but certainly we started getting engaged into cultural tourism on this farm of ours and trying to tell an important story. And the story that was told was important for the San people to tell their own story in their own way and really try to find the essence of the story and to try and train other people and to expose other people to this and to really be honest about the story. And this was told to visitors who slowly increased. Just before COVID, we received annually 20,000 visitors who visit Khwa annually. And these are people of all ages. Many of them are local people who live in that area. And many of them are also foreigners. And people come there and the San are hosts and welcome them and entertain them and educate them and really interact with them in a very unique and warm and interactive way. And this has become quite a core area of our work. If we look today, this is the work that we do is really divided into 4 pillars. The one is having a training center, and this has been very much the blood of our organization that flows through all the aspects of it. And this is really the training part where we recruit young people who come to stay with us every 6 months. So every 6 months we have 10 new interns, we call them interns, and they spend an intense time with us. They spend the time where they actually get thrown into a deep end and they really learn all the aspects of the hospitality industry. They learn how to become waitresses or chefs or vehicle maintenance or looking at farm maintenance or looking at housekeeping and cleaning and reception work. This is a very practical work where young people learn from mentors, and the mentors are people who speak their own languages, who come from their own villages, who are San people who have become great experts and owners of this project. And these are the most incredible mentors who really take care of these people. And at the end of the 6 months, there is a need for these people to find a job and to have an incredible CV where they could really talk about their first-hand experiences. It's all based on doing and saying, I can do this, and really developing the CV that really gives them an opportunity to go out there and to find a job. We have a farm where we look after the land and where we really use the land to the best of our ability to source indigenous plants and to sell these plants, and to really, through this, using the indigenous plants, we tell stories. We create a menu in a restaurant where every step is a cultural experience. Every plate has a touch of indigenous in it, and everything comes off the land or comes locally from farms next door to us. We have fired all the big organizations, all the big Coca-Cola, big companies, all the big suppliers of food, and all we do is we harvest the food from our land. We are totally sustainable in this sort of way. And this has been our great new lesson that we learned during COVID, that we should really do it ourselves and source it ourselves. And this has created an amazing story that we are incredibly proud of, that has given us a lot of energy and inspiration to survive after this COVID, or trying to really create something so unique and so special that makes us different from our competitors. And it really creates a fantastic opportunity where hunters and gatherers have used a farm to a best ability to use the indigenous stuff and use the resources that's right here and available. and the food tastes better, the stories are better, the cultural experience of just serving a plate of food is just amazing. A burger has a whole new story. A hamburger has a whole new story as what it was before. It tastes better. It has the most unique tastes. And this is a great story. This is giving us a great inspiration for time to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you. Thank you for describing the entire story of Khwa. And in fact, the way you described it, it's actually very brilliant in that there's a farm. It's in an arid area. Yeah, it's not really aggregable, and yet it was the indigenous home of the San people. And San people are incredible because they've survived. In fact, they've thrived in such arid and very difficult conditions. They hunt, they gather, and they survive for many thousands of years on indigenous plants, indigenous however, for culinary and medicinal purposes. And what is great about Khwa is that while there is some farming, but the focus is not so much the production, it is the use of such a large piece of land, such a large farm, to create the environment that in which the San people can be able to leave, for example, come from Cape Town or from another city or from wherever they come from, and visitors to be able to kind of firsthand see for themselves and experience the arid conditions that the San people lived in. And moreover, more than cultural tourism, the training and the addressing of the rural challenges, the challenge of rural settings, which I mentioned earlier, such as increasing unemployment, loss of education. The on-the-job training is brilliant in preparing the interns that do participate in the program. And I'm really looking forward to the questions for you in terms of organization and planning of this and implementing this into businesses, into not only farms, but from what the non-profit sector might consider, from what governmental players might consider, and from general cooperatives and associations. So I'm really looking forward to your questions. We won't have time to answer the questions, but please keep looking at the chat, and we will be answering the questions directly on the chat, and if not during the chat, via email following up. So I don't want to take up too much of Fidelis' time, which is our farmer from Malawi, who will talk about Mazizi farm and how him and Yvonne, his wife, are really spearheading agritourism in the context of Malawi.
Good evening or morning, everyone. I'll indeed present on behalf of the family. Yvonne was supposed to be with me, but I have traveled, say, like 300 km away from home. So I'm presenting from extreme south of Malawi. About our history, why we decided to go into farming, or while we were developing this farm, that personally I grew up on the farm, especially my grandmom's farm, which used to offer us plenty of fruits and a lot of life. But as I grew up, and we realized that we no longer have such kind of a better farm, so we want to revisit its life. So in short, Malawi is in the South Central East Africa, and Mazizi farm is in the southern region. We are surrounded by Tanzania in the north, Zambia in the southwest, and then much more or largely engulfed by Mozambique in the extreme south and in the east. We know that cultural heritage holds great importance for communities around the world, and it is also the case with Malawi. However, cultural heritage is at risk to the adverse impacts of natural disasters or climate change, which brings it to the agency of addressing the challenge. How did we also further or advance our inspiration? I did attend the first International Summer School Sustainable and Promotion of Rural Territories in Malawi. That was in September 2016. That was facilitated by Professor Shani, may he so rest in peace. And then thereafter, we, as a family, we also attended the first World Congress Agritourism in Bozano. That was in 2018 in November. And that has also built the momentum with the ongoing activities, especially with the contacts with the Jackie Taylor, Africa, for Agritourism Africa, as well as with Linda Chase at the University of Vermont. As it is always said that mentors are a shortcut to your destination, I also feel like having met the other presenters here, they are also a shortcut to the destination that we desire. The Malawi Growth and Development Strategy 3 looks at building a productive and a resilient nation. And it has put Malawi agriculture and tourism among the 5 key priorities. And Malawi has also developed the Malawi Tourism 2020 strategy. However, there is a discrepancy between tourism and agriculture. People are trying to focus on agritourism in general and agriculture in general. And therefore, we have seen an opportunity that if we combine agriculture and tourism, so much the better. And especially that in the extreme south, where we have the farm, we have incidences of floods, incidences of long dry spells, and incidences of losing the trees, the traditional trees, and also losing the crops that were grown by our forefathers. And so this farm is aimed at revisiting or revitalizing that farm lifestyle. In Malawi, 1 in 4 people live in extreme poverty, and 37% of the children are stunted. And so when you look at 85% of the youth unemployment, the agritourism offers an opportunity to create employment for the youth. Because when the youth migrates to the town with little education and they have no better jobs, they become disgruntled, and the likelihood of not producing peace, the likelihood of a conflict is very high. So by investing in agritourism, it will contribute to a positive youth development. That's the, when you look at this picture, you realize that most of the Malawians are below 35 to 39 years old, which means that there's more room. If we invest in the youth, there's more room to increase the welfare or to improve the livelihoods of the most people in the communities. So we are sure that by investing in this, we are trying to protect livelihoods, as well as the economic activities. Our project theory of change is like to improve livelihoods in the group village Manti in Chasukwa district, and with having the 3 strategic objectives: to improve livelihoods of the people around the farm, as well as also vulnerable communities have protected and enhanced resiliency to climate change, as well as the 3rd objective is to promote or safeguarding and the protection of the Manganja and the Sena cultural heritage. Where we stay, we have 2 major tribes, the Manganja as the host, where I belong to, and then the Senas who ran away from the wars in Mozambique, but they did not go back, and the Manganjas hosted them. we have been coexisting for a long time and appreciating each other's cultural background as well as cultural heritage, which is not the case in most parts, on some of the parts in Malawi. So we want to reinforce this coexistence to be a model by producing peace. So as the Mazizi Agritourism Farm, we established a youth club, and whose composition you can see. Others are in secondary schools, others are in primary schools, others those who dropped out of school. But some of the children who dropped out of school, after coming into the club, they will go back to school, and therefore it is also contributing to the education attainment. To my left, you will see Yvonne. She was providing the sports attire to the youth club. Now, by the end of the day, perhaps after, oftentimes when the children have finished to say like play, would meet together and then discuss how do they envision life in the future. So you have boys apart from girls, and then thereafter we'll come together and see to make how do we move forward. We have also been able to train the youth in making the hats. Once the hats are sold, the proceeds are plowed back to buying the school materials for the children. As a conclusion, I will look at Malawi is the Ministry of Agriculture. However, it's dependent on rainfed and the attendant challenges of climate change. And we believe that cultural heritage holds a key for the community's resilience. We look at the youth badge, but it does not, the dividend for the demographic dividend does not just come on its own. It has to be harnessed. Otherwise, if it is not harnessed, then there is a likelihood of breeding violence in the future or in near future. And therefore, we believe that partnerships, either North-South partnerships or South-South partnerships, and indeed from these kind of gatherings, we're also able to learn from those people who are ahead in agritourism. Thank you. That's the end. Much appreciated.
Thank you, Fidelis. Thank you. From your presentation of what agritourism looks like in Malawi, and to also, there's some incredible information about the wider strategy, the wider integration into the industry. And I'm certain there will be questions about that, which will also be answered in the chat, because fortunately we really run out of time. But from this, we can really take away that in the context of Southern Africa, agritourism is really fundamental in addressing some socioeconomic challenges. And we have seen that through Khwa, through Naledi farm, through Mazizi farm, and the wider agritourism industry in Malawi, that the youth is important. And in all three contexts, there is a form of youth development, there is education, there is training. And we can also take away that family farming is also a crucial part, and integrating the family into working together. And all of this contributes to the revival of the rural economy and really encouraging the backward urban to rural migration, strengthening rural economies. So agritourism, so today we've really touched on very lightly on the potential of agritourism in the context of Southern Africa. Please engage more with me and with my wider team, with Jackie, with Watsi, Camilla, by visiting the Agritourism Africa website, where if you, as a farmer or as a tour operator, you could also be listed, and you could also get some really best practice knowledge on how to best conduct yourself in the industry, and how to really go about setting up and doing well in the agritourism space. Thank you for engaging with us, and I will hand it over to Lisa.
Thank you so much, Kanyi, Manti, Michael, and Fidelis. It is so exciting to hear what's going on in Southern Africa, and really makes me eager for a time when we can all move around freely and visit each other again. In closing, I just want to share, let's see, one more slide here. Just want to mention that we have some more plans for this this series as we move forward and explore new topics in different parts of the world. On April 20th, we'll be focusing on a culinary lens on agritourism. And then in May, we'll be looking at regional strategies for community economic development and how agritourism plays a role there. So once again, I want to thank you all so much today for such an interesting discussion, and invite you to keep joining us month after month as we explore new topics.